Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Sunday. I'm not sure if I have the correct... No, I forgot to put the address in, so I'll write it on a piece of paper for you where you can get the soundtrack for today. Here's where you go to anything to do with anything I discuss on these live streams. And at this point, we've covered quite a lot of subjects. Let's see. Here's where you go to my YouTube channel. Hang on. Shay just handed me, seeing as it's Father's Day, here's my son.
Hello.
Without him, none of this would be possible. Here where you can get today's soundtrack. scientificsounds.com/realization. Thank you, Shay. Because it's Father's Day, and I'm talking about realization, and talked about dis-ease. Dis-ease, you pick certain words apart in English. English is an interesting language because it comes from so many roots of other languages we've grabbed and yanked and populated our language with words from Latin and from French and from German and from all kinds of different languages. And words like disease is dis-ease. The lack of ease in my body is where dis-ease comes from a standpoint that when my body is in a perfect state of ease, then all systems are perfect and aligned and coherent and balanced, and I'm 100% healthy. And all the systems can do their job. And when I'm not in that state, when I am not in a state of perfect ease, I have a state of dis-ease, and then things aren't working properly, and things are piling up, and toxins are not releasing properly, I'm not digesting properly, I'm not extracting properly, I'm not rebuilding properly. It has effects throughout my physical body, it affects my emotions, affects my minds, my belief systems, it affects my spirituality, my ability to be here and be here with myself, be here now. And the same thing with this word realization. The idea of making myself more real, of arriving at a more real place. And that's what we'll discuss today. And the fact that realization and this discussion today about realization is coinciding with today being Father's Day. Thinking about that, I realized that it was one of the grand, significant moments. To change from sort of a civilian to a professional who now has a child, which the ramifications of that event I was not really prepared for. For the deeper meaning of what that actually began to entail and has continued to unfold as time has gone on. When we, when I look back upon my dad, Earl Dean, who gave me his middle name, Dean. That's me, by the way. My dad was in the Air Force. He was a pilot. He was gone a lot. And he was gone on secret missions. He couldn't tell us how long he would be gone or where he was going to be going. And of course, because I was a military kid, I lived all over the place. I was actually born here in California. But I left when I was 1. And I lived every place else in the world except for California. And that had a deep influence on me. I don't have a hometown. I lost contact with everyone I ever grew up with. I don't have friends that I went to, grade school and junior high and high school and graduated together. I don't have that. And military kids don't have that. It has a deep effect on you, particularly if you're an introvert, where everybody else there in the school has had that. They're surrounded by people they grew up with as kids. Friendships have been formed. So I tended to always be the introverted, creative, intelligent, quiet type who didn't do well in parties and ended up attracting, like myself, misfits. And then at a point when I had my own son, Shay, that ushered in a clear demarcation zone of before and after fatherhood, which changed everything. And it was part of my own realization process, the part of me becoming more real because of that. Parenthood, you grow up with someone from the very beginning, from the moment they're born, and you spend years and decades with them. You've known them in their most strange and interesting moments. You've watched this person change and change and change and become a new person and a new person and a new person with a core person underneath it all. And this is Shay and I in my recording studio here where I'm sitting right now working on sound projects together. He's a recording studio engineer, high-tech guy, musician, chip off the old block, right? This is my recording studio before I moved everything around. You see I have two racks of keyboards here. And when I bought the Rolly keyboard that's right behind me over here, this one, then I replaced this keyboard with that rack and put this keyboard over on this side on a 3-tier rack. So I replaced this double rack with a triple rack. And that's my current studio, is a triple rack and a double rack. And this studio has upgraded a few times. I've replaced this monitor. I've replaced both monitors. This one here is now an extra wide curved monitor, a very cool monitor. But this is where I make all the music that you hear every week. This is where I make the music that is on many of the soundtracks that are on my website. So, I remember when I became a father, things became more grounded and more personal. The schmancy ideas I had up to that demarcation point in my life. The fancy things about consciousness, about humanity, about the globe, about global warming, about pollution, about social things, about politics, about everything. Everything shifted. A reason it shifted was because now it was personal instead of an ideological thing, sort of on paper in my mind. Grand ideas in my mind became grounded in reality because now I had my son to look out for. There was a responsibility that I could never shirk. I mean, all of a sudden you've got this little baby who depends completely on you. And without question, you do whatever's necessary to make that happen without even thinking about it. I found myself shifting without even realizing it. My priorities from me to taking care of my son, making sure the world was safe for him. What I used to do was, pull money out of when I would make big sales or do a big workshop. I would always take 10% of that and give it to me to appease my little child, make that little unconscious part happy. When that part was happy, then the world flowed. When this part was unhappy, the world didn't flow. And so one way to make it happy would be to take 10% and give it to this part so it could spend it on itself and do stuff. And then all of a sudden that was gone. And it was gone in a way I didn't even notice. I didn't notice for years that I wasn't doing that anymore. That 10% was going for my son. My fancy schmancy ideas about global humanity and climate change and the fact that the world is profoundly corrupted and every institute that has to do with money is corrupted. It has been corrupted for so long and so entrenched that it's pretty much impossible to legislate your way out of it. It's too controlled. It's too solidified. Great pains have been taken over the decades to dig in and make sure it's not possible to wrest control from the sort of bad guys who've stolen the world from us, which leaves us in a condition where they have run the world right into the ground and it's heading towards the cliff. And even though the world itself is heading towards a global calamity, a crisis, the forces that be there in power still continue to do nothing, or very little around the edges, when what needs to be done is a global emergency pulling together of every country on the planet and all the scientific communities together in an unprecedented, heroic moment in all of human history to address the dire condition of our planet and where it's going and do something about it as fast as possible and do it now in emergency mode, as the kind of mobilization we saw happen in World War II, an unprecedented mobilization of humankind that had never been seen before on a worldwide scale. In this case, we need to approach this as if this was World War III, and the world needs to mobilize against the forces that are bringing us all to our demise in the name of profit. So, to me, that's one of the pristine and purest examples of unrealization, where the focus is as skewed as it can possibly be, that the focus of what's real and what's not real, of the important things versus the superfluous things that have no true meaning, shows us that the world is pointed in 100% the wrong direction, that we're focused on the illusory, the things that we can't take with us when we die, the things that are the most important. I remember seeing this picture of, Steve Jobs. He's worth $7 billion, and he's dying of pancreatic cancer, and he weighs about 90 pounds. And on his deathbed, he's talking about, I have all this money, and I can do all this stuff, and I can buy anything I want. And I'm a very powerful person, and people praise me. And yet, Now here I am, like anyone else, equalized. Equalized and facing the things that are the most truly important in life, the things that can't be bought with money. And what that boils down to is, who do you love and who loves you back? What responsibilities have you done in your life to make people's lives better? For the sake of that only. What things have you done to make the world a better place for your own children to grow up in? And it was that question for me that arose. That all of a sudden my ideas about what I believe are the things that should be done to make the world a better place and to save the planet and all the rest, and change the attitude of humanity itself and direct it in the proper fashion where it should be and not where it is. People before profit. We're all one, we're all in this together. That became personal, because now it was my son I was leaving this world to. That, and when I look upon who I am and what I've achieved in my life and what I'm doing with my life, the things that I know as an older man who've been through a lot of experiences and have a certain amount of wisdom that has arisen from being thoroughly beat up by life and learning a whole bunch of different lessons of what you do and what you don't do and what is important and what's not important. Now it was grounded and personal. I realized that I have some of the answers of how to make the world a better place. And it's my responsibility to do something about that, to step forward and actually make that actualize, to realize that. Not sit around and think about it, or talk about it, or even talk with little groups about it. If it's not grounded and realized in action that can make change, then it's pretty useless. It's just what was called in the East palaver, talk that has no consequence. And spiritually, that's there's something similar there. It's every minute Zen. It's what am I doing right now? It was one of the big factors that I appreciated greatly about Gurdjieff's teachings. One of the first mystics to come over in the 1920s from the East, with all kinds of secrets from secret brotherhoods and esoteric information from various cultures that had been assembled together specifically for the Western mind. And one of the grounded realities that I appreciated from studying Gurdjieff's work, this work on yourself idea. The work on yourself idea that was similar to Trogam Rinpoche's meditation in action and every minute Zen and Suzuki's Zen mind, beginner's mind. All of these kind of factions that showed that your meditation is here and it's now. It's not tonight at 8 o'clock in the evening in a special room you've got to set aside to meditate in, where you put your butt on a pillow and you sit there and meditate. It's now. If your purpose of meditation is not to slowly evolve it out of that room into your regular life on a day-to-day basis, what's the point? You have to bring your meditation here and now in your present life and figure out a way to be in full lotus position in some place in yourself while you do anything and everything. So the responsibilities shift and change when you become a parent. I remember it also puts you in your place. For instance, I remember when Shay was 9, we were playing one of the first 3D computer games where you could control a character in a three-dimensional environment and interact and do things and walk around and climb things. Tomb Raider. And he turned to me and he said, "What were your favorite computer games when you were a kid, Dad?" And it was like, whoa, the computers hadn't been invented yet when I was a kid. And I could see it was like, whoa, there's an ancient time in the prehistoric past when computers hadn't been invented yet, and my dad was there, probably with the dinosaurs. But the next question was, well, what were your favorite videos? Oh, they hadn't had videos yet when I was a kid. They hadn't been invented yet. What were your favorite TV shows? Oh, TV hadn't been invented yet when I was a kid. And it blows my mind that I can even say that. I existed in a time before computers were invented and before television was invented. There was radio. I was born in 1947. I remember the first television set up the street. The people who bought it had a block party. A potluck, so to speak, before that was invented. And everybody crowded in their living room to look at this little piece of furniture with a little round screen with a black and white image that didn't come on until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It came on with a test pattern with an Indian head and a bunch of lines. And then that came on, and midnight, television went off with the Star-Spangled Banner, a little movie that played the national anthem, and then the television just kind of cut off and with snow. The good old days, right? And then it was like, well, what did you used to do? You know, and I thought, oh, there's an interesting question. What did I used to do when I was a kid? Geez, you know, my mom would shoo me out of the house in the morning. Out. It's a nice day. Go outside. Play outside. Out of the house. So I'd go out and I'd play all day long. And it was just me and my imagination. I would run through the grass and the fields, climb trees and find caves and go in sinkholes and explore all day long through the woods, through the fields, and never see a house. When I was a kid, I lived in Tennessee and Alabama. So those are beatific places out there. And of course, this was back in, you know, the late 40s, early 50s. Running all day in nature, me and my imagination, in a state of blissful happiness. Sometimes I would do it with my friends and buddies. Sometimes I'd be alone. But all day long in nature, never see a house. And then it starts to get dark, and I make my way back home and play with my friends under the street light until it's dark. And then my mother comes to the porch and yells for dinner, and I go in. And I'm telling this to my son, and I'm thinking, oh my God, my mom had no idea where I was for a whole day. Didn't think about it twice. What happened to that world? You know, all of a sudden, I'm mourning for my son, who will never have that experience. Those days are over. Now we know exactly where our children are at 24/7 because we've got cell phones and we can call them up. We can find out what's going on. We know exactly what's happening. Nobody just comes over and knocks on your door at random and says, "Can Johnny come out to play?" No, that's all coordinated through parents. There's a schedule. There's baseball. There's this. There's that. It's scheduled. Neighbors don't come over for a cup of sugar anymore and sit down for a cup of coffee and shoot the breeze. And there's something missing here that it went away. It's gone. So I mourned for that. Which brings me deeper into the fact that we've, at a deeper level, lost our indigenous selves, which I spent a whole live stream discussing. The indigenous self, the ancient ancestors, had a relationship with nature and the sun coming up and living with the rhythms of life in nature. before civilization. Civilization at that point was a tribe where you grew up with your parents and your grandparents and your aunts and your uncles, all the people that you grew up with as friends. Nobody had jobs. Nobody was unemployed. Money was not a concept. Everyone had their duty, and their duty was based on what they do best. How's that for a good idea? With our present civilization, that is gone. And we now have a civilization of weird stuff that is extremely stressful. And as I've discussed before, that stress affects us at the autonomic nervous system level that controls all my systems. And if I'm locked in a stress response all the time, I can't heal, I can't rebuild, I am now in an official state of dis-ease, which leads to disease, which is the core of disease. And underlying all of that is being more and more and more pulled away and distracted by the stresses of life and the things that I have to do, and entertainment cycles, and now we're locked into our cell phones all the time. Further and further distractions from the reality of who and what I truly am and why I'm here. Distracted from searching in the great heroic journey of why I'm alive here on Earth in this period of time, and what I'm here to do. And because I've been thoroughly distracted from that and hypnotized by the world, I have become more and more and more unreal. More living in a hypnotized dream of sort of programming by society and civilization that my life is supposed to be this. Here's what you're supposed to be. Here's what you're supposed to wear. Here's what you're supposed to eat. Here's what you're supposed to look like. Here's what you're supposed to believe. Here's what you're supposed to do. You wake up with an alarm clock. You drive to work. You work for 8 hours for somebody else. And you drive back home for another traffic jam, and you quickly make supper and help kids with the homework. If you've got kids, watch some TV. Mostly mindless entertainment that pulls you further out of yourself. Maybe you watch some news and watch the world burn, which gives you more stress. And then you go to bed and you wake up to an alarm clock, and you do it all over again for your whole life. On the weekends, you blow off some steam and maybe get drunk, party a little bit. That is not life. That is not real. It's as real as it can be, but it's not the core, true, grounded reality of what you truly are and why you're here. And that's really more of what I'm referring to when I talk about the process of realization, the process of making myself more real, the realization process of me, to find out why I'm here, what it's all about, and not be distracted by the maelstrom of influences that are swirling around me, that are calling on me, that are pulling at me, that are sucking my psychic energy and my electromagnetic energy and everything else, for some purpose that is aside the road of why I'm here and what I'm here to do. My grounded, personal, here reality. Which ultimately can only happen sort of in the moment, but my ordinary life of things and schedules and taxes and forms and job applications and traffic jams and all the rest is someplace deep inside. I know that it's more a cosmic voyage of a light being on an eternal journey, the great hero's journey to find out the purpose of the higher dimensions of myself and why I'm here, and what's my universal plan, where do I fit into it all? And in a grounded way, what can I do now to change my life? Which is why I said before, I was attracted to and enjoyed Gurdjieff's approach, which was very grounded like that. It was more of all of this esoteric information is cool. It sparks me. It gets me more involved, but it's not itself a solution to anything. It's for some people just another distraction, which leads me to believe it's a better distraction because it's spiritual, but it's a distraction just the same. And my ego consciousness uses that as just a new form to keep me diverted and hypnotized from the grounded reality of what I'm here for. It becomes another method. Trunk for Rinpoche wrote another book called Spiritual Materialism. One of the big traps of becoming a spiritual person is for the ego to use that as well as a way to keep me asleep. And in some cases, it's worse than just being asleep, because being asleep, at least you're honest in your asleepness. And if your ego uses your spirituality as a bigger ego boost, because someplace inside of me is believing that I'm better than you because I'm spiritual, and because I'm doing yoga, and because I'm meditating every night at 8 p.m. And I read, my book list is spiritual books, not fiction. But all of those things are new distractions to keep my spirit distracted at a more a fine degree of distraction that's more difficult to realize that too is a distraction. It's keeping me from the true search, the grounded reality, the realization of myself with my feet firmly planted on the ground, where I have to do something, not just think about it or read about it, or think about it. And so that was what I liked about Gurdjieff, was what did you do today? Tell me about your day. Did you have any moments when you woke up, when something happened, when you became more real, where the realization of yourself grounded out and you became here and now? And the thoughts in your brain about all the different things in your life you have to think about, the plans and the schedules and the this and the that, the stuff that you forgot to do, or the stuff on your list to accomplish in your ordinary life, or the world situation, or whatever it is that's pulling your attention, you all of a sudden step aside from that. The big part, the real part, steps aside from that and sees it as, here's this person in this body, in this environment, in this world, having these thoughts and all these emotions, while I'm over here as the root, the real part of my consciousness, in a sort of objective observation, as an interesting factoid, like a scientist from another dimension who's arrived to observe the strange and interesting behavior of these organic beings, these, as Gurdjieff called it, three-brained beings: brain, heart brain, physical body brain. Separating out from that and becoming more real. And so now, what am I doing with the reality of myself? What do I do? The great teachers, the great cosmic ideas from the esoteric science of opening myself up to the core and the root of myself, that the cosmic part of me, that is anything but ordinary. The part of me that has read books and sat at the feet of teachers and maybe watched workshops and videos, how to meditate, and I'm putting that into practice in some way in my life to reach higher planes of dimensions. Like I said, if I don't take this and I move it in my regular life, then it's only compartmentalized and the rest of my life is asleep. Sort of bringing these practices into a more realized form in my life, where my deep self, my deep contemplative self, who starts to get a sense of where I stand in relation to the cosmos, which is grounded right here with my next step, or cosmic archetypes of the deep unconscious mind, represented by the great masters, the Buddhas and the Christs and the Zoroasters, and all who essentially say the same thing. There's a divinity in everything, and every place you look is the face of God. The Tibetan Buddhist idea that God divided into an infinite number of finite parts, and each of those parts represented a shard of the total personality of the Godhead, solidified into physical form, and that became you and me and everything else. An infinite number of standpoints of viewing a fractalized mirror of God, looking at God's self from an infinite number of standpoints, infinite number of stories, an infinite number of pathways home, and all of them caused to forget who they are, their true nature, and enter into the epic story of a lifetime to begin to discover that what you thought it was all about isn't that at all. And as you dig deeper into this sort of spiritual Sherlock Holmes, you begin to discover your path, and you begin to follow that path and find the epic story of your true nature. It's really the epic story of the realization of yourself, the real-ization, and not the illusory thing that's all in your head. Of course, now from a standpoint of quantum physics, it's sort of like the things that they're discovering in quantum physics seems to be straight out of the Upanishads and the Vedas and the Sutras of Patanjali, the most ancient texts on earth, where they have deeply discussed these issues, that the universe is nothing more than sort of a dream in the mind of God. Now, in quantum theory, the core of reality is information. Information from the core of the quantum field, from the ancient literatures, that is the core of the quantum field is energy, pattern, relationships in a standing wave. Something's vibrating, but we can't measure it. It's consciousness itself that's vibrating, and the vibration is a thought. And that thought is information. And that information is spelling out this world that we're in. It's defining it. It's like the Matrix. It's information forming patterns, forming standing waves, forming something that looks to be real. But it's not. And in the realization process, the real-ization process of where I become more real and less illusory, I begin to see through all the patterns around me that make up this world. The definitions for things begin to fall away. I start to realize that that because human beings have put a name on every possible iota of everything in the universe and everything that it's made of, down to a quantum root level, everything's got some little name, and then we start to believe that the names make the universe an infinite number of finite little parts that are all different from each other, and that's not true. That's an illusion. The realization process breaks through that illusion and realizes all one gigantic homogeneous whole. And people have put names on things, but don't be fooled. So from the standpoint of enlightenment, where you see through the information matrix, where you see through the definitions that we've applied to things and the names we've given to things that make them look like they're all separate from each other. A moment of enlightenment, a moment of realization penetrates that. Nothing changes except everything. Everything appears to be the same, but the definitions and the words all fall away, and the synchronicity and the homogeneity and the fractal holographic reality of it begins to get penetrated. That the illusion that it's an infinite world of all these little finite things. There's a me, and there's a you, and there's a tree, and there's a hand, and there's a finger, and those things fall away. And everything that you experience is now shining in a certain type of enlightened knowingness that's coming from deep inside of yourself, that is your core, true, real self. And the closer you can get to that self, the closer you get to synchronizing up with the present moment that's happening right now. That's before time. Time is an illusion. You know, the processes that are going on in my brain, processing this information and interpreting it. The only reason I can see something is because of the limitation of my eyesight. My eyesight is only limited to a super narrow little bandwidth of vibrational frequencies in the electromagnetic spectrum that we call color. 450 to 750 nanometers. That's what the retina is tuned to. And everything outside of that narrow little tiny range, the whole rest of the universe of all the other electromagnetic vibrations that exist, are invisible to me. So therefore it appears as if things are solid with a space around them. But that's just an illusion. There is no space around anything. The space around things is filled with all the rest of that vibrational spectrum. We just can't see it because our eyes is not tuned to it. It's an illusion. The realization process is breaking through that illusion. This is my favorite little boy here, this little scene in The Matrix where, the little boy is there bending spoons and he's going, you don't try to bend the spoon. That's impossible. Rather, it's you yourself that bend. The spoon is an illusion. It's a projection of my deep conscious self. I change myself. I change the belief patterns. I change the expectations within me, and reality bends to my will. But this is will with a capital W. This is me grounded in the present moment, synchronized up with reality, and reality is in this flow. It's in this dance. It's unfolding like a flower. It's blossoming out. And when I synchronize with that blossoming, I synchronize with the true meaning of why I'm here. I don't have to search for it anymore. I'm in it. I'm part of it. It's in the present moment. It's outside of time. I'm unfolding with it simultaneously, and therefore I allow it to direct my actions. I can't know. I have to release this to become real. I have to release, because no matter how fast I try to think myself into the present moment, I'll always be late, because it takes a microsecond to fire the neuron of a thought. And a microsecond late from the present might as well be a million years late, because there's true reality, which is outside of time, that's present and now, and there's everything else. Time of any dimension, time of any amount, 1/billionth of a trillionth of a second is just as illusory as 100 billion years. You're either in time or outside of a time. And in time is my true nature. The big mind is centered in the present moment, simultaneous with the present moment. And then I have thoughts about that, and those take time. So by the time I've thought the thought about what I've experienced, it's already passed. The experience is already passed, and what I'm experienced thinking about it is an illusion. It's an after the fact. It's a curlicue on the rump of reality. It's a baroque twirl on a letter. Which, means, well, who the hell am I then? If everything I am is my thinking about things, then who am I? I am nothing. I am an illusion. I'm not it. I need to step out of that. I need to step out of my own way. I need to step aside from all of that. Not necessarily stop that, because that's who this part of me is. I can't stop that. All I can do is step out of it, step aside from it. It's still there doing its thing, but I'm over here watching it. And who is this I that's watching? It's the big I, the capital I, the I that's closer and closer synchronized up with the present moment. And those are the things that the great masters try over and over again in various cultures and various periods of time in history to communicate, that we break through this illusion and we come in contact with our light body, simultaneous with sort of the photon, where the photon and the phonon mix, where the photon representing the electromagnetic spectrum of light particles, photons, meets the non-electromagnetic portion of the universe, the phonon, or sound waves, or mechanical energy waves, pure energy moving through a medium. It's the yin and yang, the electromagnetic and the non-electromagnetic, the pure energy force and the electromagnetic force, eternally spinning around each other, causing each other. But arriving in the present moment outside of a thought, before a thought, is the sort of every minute Zen thing we're talking about, where when all of that falls away, then I can be here now with what I am. As I said, one of the previous ones, I'm stuck in a traffic jam on the highway, and there's a big apartment complex on the side of the road. It's got a big sign that says, if you lived here, you'd be home now. That's like, wow, that was an enlightenment moment for me. It was like, wow, if I lived here, I'd be home now. If my destination was here, then I'm never late, because late is in time, and I would never be anxious because I'm late. My purpose would be to be here, home, now. And therefore everything is complete and satisfied, and filled with satisfaction and filled with ease, because I've achieved the 1,000-mile journey without taking a single step. And those things can be reflected. We can see those things reflected in the brain. The brain electrical activity and the patterns of brain waves and all the rest is reflective of that. Things happen in the brain the closer we get to the present moment. Coherence patterns show up in the topographical mapping of the brain mapping computers. This idea that the neurons and the axon connections and all the rest that we talked about with the synapse and the quantum field of the synapse and the fact that the neurons and the cells and all of these axons are filled with microtubules that have electromagnetic properties, that have biocrystalline properties, which makes them subject to the piezoelectric effect. But there's a ghost in the machine here. There's a consciousness itself is not a derivative of electromagnetic processes of neurons firing. Neurons firing and the whole architecture of my body and the universe itself is a product of consciousness, creating ripple patterns in space-time. My consciousness solidifies this field. My point of view changes it. The magic of the coordinated systems of consciousness displaying themselves through my brain and nervous system that I can observe on an EEG that can help me to, for instance, in my work, create soundtracks that can entrain brainwaves to the places that we observe they go when I get closer and closer to the present moment and have a moment of epiphany, a moment of realization. What does that look like in the brain? Me in the process of realizing myself to the core and root of who I truly am here in the present moment looks like something in the brain. And once we see what that looks like, we can entrain your brainwaves to that. And we're not going to, make you enlightened by that, but we are going to, you can bring a horse to the water, but you can't make it drink, but you can hold its nose and pour water down its throat, and you can stack the deck in your favor, and you can create training wheels for enlightenment. The idea that enlightenment and consciousness and reflections in physical processes all are simultaneous with each other. That we can use science, the science of high-tech meditation, Star Trek meditation, and that can align with these ancient fields that we've measured in the body, chakra fields, the nadis, how my electromagnetic systems in various systems in my body, they're all electromagnetic, coalesce and weave together in harmonic electromagnetic relationships, and how that ties in with the cosmos itself. All in this arriving more and more into the present moment where things become shining in realization, in enlightenment, in a level of understanding where everything appears to be the same, but I'm not fooled by it anymore. I'm synchronized up with it in the present moment. I'm simultaneous with it. One doesn't cause something else. The cause and the result are simultaneous. All past and future events are happening at once. I'm everywhere. Just like they've said for thousands of years in various cultures, the idea of the ancient meets the new. Science discovers God. Quantum field discovers the Upanishads. It's part of the same business. And in every culture, sound has been a key to it. Sound has been a key tool, high-tech tool. I mean, 4,000 years ago when the first monk made the first Tibetan bowl and rubbed it with a stick, and it helped to balance me in a deeper state of meditation faster, that was a high-tech tool at that time. Just like a computer is today. It must have blown people's minds back then that you could create a high-tech tool to aid meditation and boost it and speed it up. Our tools are just more sophisticated now. Electronic oscillators, EEG machines, brain mapping computers, heart rate variability devices. We can now observe in great detail what goes on in here in moments of enlightenment, and we can entrain to those moments. Pick the lock of neural programs, make them run, use science and technology to bring us to the brink, and then it's a force of letting go inside of us that has to meet that, but it's now easier. Easier to see my quantum self, my universal self. Right down to the core of my being, down to the core of who knows how to grow my body out of 2 cells, read the blueprint, see my cosmic entity, my true realized sort of self. And it all boils down to something that I decide to do. That I decide to do in the real world, that I decide to realize, to make myself more real in actual doing of something instead of thinking or reading or talking about it. It's a certain point when that has to be over and I have to actually do something. So once again, why I like the Gurdjieff idea. What did you do today? Did you make an attempt at all? A real world, grounded in reality attempt to wake up today? I was doing the dishes and I had the radio on. I'm listening to music. And so I can get through it faster. No, excuse me, all of a sudden I realize, oh, you know what? I'm doing nothing else, just doing the dishes. Now would be a good time to see if I can make myself more real. Now would be a good time to see if I can wake myself up. What would that look like? What would it be like to synchronize myself up with the present moment now? Step aside from the thoughts I've got in my mind, listening to the music, windows open, birds are outside chirping, I can smell something, I can feel something. All of a sudden, all that stuff gels together in a massive hyperdimensional mandala where none of it has any more importance than anything else. All the words drop away. And I begin to feel myself synchronizing up with the present moment of me washing a cup with the water running on my hands. That all of a sudden, this simple act, now with it, 100% synced up with it, makes it the most sacred act in the universe, washing a dish with my hands, being alive and taking a breath, but being there with it in the present moment, being synchronized up with it, where if you lived here, you'd be home now, that I've just arrived at the end of my journey, of a long, many lifetimes journey. I've arrived here, which is continually changing. The present is constantly shifting and changing. As according to, the I Ching, I change. The only thing in the whole universe that does not change is change itself. Constant shifting, new moment, new moment, new moment, new moment, never the same. It's why in Suzuki's book, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, the greatest thing that can happen to you and the worst thing that can happen to you simultaneously is a moment of enlightenment, because your next meditation will be trying to recapture that moment of enlightenment, and it's gone forever. There will never be another one like that, because each new moment is new. No 2 moments are the same. My enlightenment now will never happen again, because it'll always be a new enlightenment, a new enlightenment, a new enlightenment, as I synchronize up with the moment that's always drifting and changing and blossoming and opening like a flower. Enlightenment is a precious thing. The snapshot of my experience of that moment of enlightenment is like the Tibetan Buddhist sand mandalas of the multicolored sand. They make this huge mandala. They spend, days and days making this huge mandala, and as soon as they finish it, they meditate on it and then sweep it away with the broom. That's what that means. Each moment is swept away and replaced with a new one outside of time. And no two are the same. It's an infinite blossoming flower that never stops. The depths of realization continue to penetrate deeper and deeper into new realizations that never end. Enlightenment is not a place to go. It's a continuum to be in. That's never the same. It's constantly new. It's infinitely changing. And it's what all the great masters have said. It's what they've all talked about in their various ways of using what words they use to talk about it, but it's all saying the same stuff. It's all the same. It's the mystery. It's the maze that captures me and turns me away from the grand realization of who I am, where I fly above that maze and I see myself down there. It's not the core of me in my true experience outside of all of this, outside of the maze of time and space, conundrums and problems that occupy my mind. I'm above all that. All problems and solutions are simultaneous with each other in this place. There is no problem that's not solved at the same time. An infinity of experience that unfolds forever when I'm in the midst of it. And at the end of all of it, the true realization is what I had talked about before. I did a whole live stream on this little book, the Zen Flesh, Zen Bones book. And back here in this section called the 10 Bowls, this is like a few thousand years old with these ancient sort of woodcuts, the 10 steps of enlightenment that we talked about. These are 15th century woodcuts from China. And these beautiful little verses that have been translated about the 10 steps to find, the source of all things, where I perceive the path, and I perceive the bull, then I chase the bull, and I catch the bull, I ride the bull home, I transcend the bull, I transcend myself and the bull, I reach the source of all things. And the 10th step of all of those steps is, the final step here is in the world. After all is said and done, and all the great journeying of spirit I've gone through, to get closer and closer to the present now and all the things that I've had to do to realize myself. At the final stage, when I've broken through everything, I'm back here in the world, grounded, realized. And as the little verse says, barefooted and naked of breast, I mingle with the people of the world. My clothes are ragged and dust-laden, and I am ever blissful. I use no magic to extend my life. Now, before me, the dead trees become alive. Inside my gate 1,000 sages do not know me. The beauty of my garden is invisible. Why should one search for the footprints of the patriarchs? I go to the marketplace with my wine bottle and return home with my staff. I visit the wine shop and the market, and everyone I look upon becomes enlightened. Wow. Yeah. You know, it's chop wood, carry water. It's the act of one foot in front of the other, holding a pail. Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. It's me here now doing what I am doing. And that's enough. It's shining in the glory of enlightenment and knowledge. All things, all answers in the universe, all questions are in that next step. The answer to all of it is here now. And we can take that and we can align ourselves together with that. And we can raise each other up. We can help one another to reach that place. And particularly, we can use science to help us do that, entrainment to help us do that. We can entrain ourselves together and use the power of numbers and synchronicity and coupled oscillators to pull us to this place more efficiently and more powerfully by aligning all of our powers together to help each other out, to help us to align to this place, to be here now, to use power of numbers and consciousness alignment to do that, which is what these live streams are all about. And where we are right now, headphones, with the soundtrack we have today, which is all about what I'm just discussing, aligning ourselves together to make our efforts to change reality more real, to realize this process in a grounded activity that we can do to make a positive change in reality itself. That's why we're here. So with that said, close your eyes and here we go. So here's where you can go to get that soundtrack. scientificsounds.com/realization. Also, I've added a lot more webinars. I've begun a whole series of webinars now, which are for the general public. Up to this point, the only ones I've done are the training for biotuning practitioners, which are intensives, and you have to buy a lot of equipment, and they last 3 weeks. These are one-day webinars on sound and healing and brain entrainment and a bunch of other things. And if you want to know what those are, you can just go to the website, either scientificsounds.com, and in the top there's a bunch of tabs. You click the webinar tab and it will take you there. Or you can go here to my other website, the Center for Neuroacoustic Research.com/webinars. Both will get you there. Scientificsounds.com webinars is one of the tabs at the top. You can click and it will take you actually to this website where it discusses all the different webinars that I've got and when they are and what they cost and all that kind of stuff. It's a worthy thing to do. It's a day. Everything you wanted to learn about brain entrainment, states of consciousness, everything you wanted to learn about sound healing with sound affecting different organs, how you can tune frequencies to different organs. Another one on how you can use all the different soundtracks I have on my website for healing in your own family, or for those who have a sound table or a sound chair they've bought, how to use it to heal your families or to incorporate into your practice or whatever. So once again, happy Father's Day to everyone out there. Peace and joy and happiness to everybody. Thank you all for being here with me. And I'll see you next Sunday.